I feel like I keep repeating the same patterns over and over. Do you ever feel that way? Like you've done the work to learn what patterns keep showing up in your life that are holding you back from achieving the money or the success or the love that you desire. And it was a huge realization, right? You discovered what happened in your younger years that led you to this, what things were modeled for you as a child that you didn't mean to learn but picked them up by default. You've journaled and you've tried NLP and you've worked on your mindset and you trust in the universe, but sometimes it feels like you're still making the same mistakes. You keep dating the jerks. Maybe you start to make money, but then something comes up and you're right back at zero. You started to feel like trying to heal was a waste of time because now you can just see yourself running headfirst into a terrible situation, but you still do it anyway. So now, instead of living out the damaging patterns, you're also beating yourself up because you think you should know better. Believe me, I've been there. I've done that exact thing, and it does feel horrible. Today, we're going to shift all of that. This podcast is called Journey to the Inner Divine for a reason. We are getting on the path to our own inner goddess. We're here to heal for real. We're here to discover self-compassion and treat ourselves the way that we would treat a lost little girl, with grace and helpfulness. Today, we are moving through the healing arc from stage 1 to stage 2, from awaken to release. And today's episode is exactly what you need to move deeper in your spiritual journey and in your healing. So grab a friend and settle in because we're in for a wild ride today. Welcome to Jyotindi, Journey to the Inner Divine, a sacred space for healing energy, emotional release, and soulful transformation. If you're ready to live with joy, ease, and purpose, you're in the right place. So today we're moving through the healing arc. And if you haven't heard of that, I do have an episode all about what it is. It was actually my very first episode, and I highly recommend that you listen to it because you're going to learn all about the stages of healing and where you're at on your journey and what you have to look forward to in the future. But for now, I'll give you a quick recap. Stage 1, I call Awaken, and this is your moment of recognition. Maybe you finally take responsibility for how you want your future to be. It is the I can't keep living like this anymore moment. Stage 2 is called release. This is your emotional processing and your energy clearing. And once you're awake, the real work begins. This is where we start feeling and healing. Stage 3 is realign. And this stage is where you start to develop a deep spiritual connection and remember your own inner truth. Stage 4, I call empower. And this stage is all about integration and embodied action and living the life that you have been working so hard for. And today we're talking about how to move through the stages so that you can stop beating yourself up and finally make some progress on your self-healing spiritual journey. Now, I know that you're in stage 1 or you're ready to move past it because you're here. You've been listening, learning ways to fight your emotional fires, to begin to process your trauma, to learn tools on how you can deepen your connection to your inner divine. And if you weren't somewhere in the healing arc, you probably wouldn't be interested in this. But you are. You want to clear out the old patterns and the stuck energy and to start to embrace all the parts of you because by now you've learned that they're all sacred. They're all messengers and they all are working together to keep you safe. You might know who some of them are and even what they're trying to tell you, but maybe you haven't quite been able to figure out how to integrate them. Maybe you still resist that part of you that needs to hoard money for emergencies, or the part of you who feels like kind, safe partners are boring. But you're finally ready to clear all of this once and for all. You're ready to release these old patterns that have been holding you back. You can feel a woman inside of you who is confident and powerful and joyful, and you desperately want to get out of her way so she can blossom. I felt like that. Like the real me is inside just waiting to get out. The real me who is grateful for all the good in my life. The me who feels the fear and takes action anyway. The me who feels good in my skin no matter what other people say I should look like. And the me who is at peace with my life. And through that peace and acceptance is able to start creating bigger and better things. The real secret here is that you are already her. You don't need to become anyone different. You just need to learn how to make peace with yourself. So when we talk about stage 2, the release stage, we have to be careful because this stage is where a lot of women either finally transform or get overwhelmed and pulled right back into their old patterns. So moving forward, there are 5 important things for you to remember. The first one is that you don't have to process every single thing to move forward. A lot of people enter this stage thinking that I need to understand every single trauma and every single pattern and every root cause of everything that's bad in my life, because that becomes overwhelming super fast. We all have a ton of patterns like that. And like I mentioned earlier, you probably already identified a few of your major patterns that are getting in the way of your life. And for now, that's enough. It's not the time to go back and dig up every single bad day that you've ever had. A more supportive way to view this is you can release something without fully understanding it. Your body and your energy system don't require the full story in order to let go. They require safety and permission. And this alone can relieve so much pressure. And the deeper you go in your healing journey, the deeper you can go into your patterns and your stories. But for now, we are not going to overwhelm ourselves. We're going to focus on forward movement and making space to call in our deepest desires. The second thing to keep in mind is awareness without compassion can become a self-attack. And don't get me wrong, self-awareness is great. Awareness is the first step to change, right? They even say it in AA. Step number 1 is admitting you have a problem. It's the catalyst for your transformation, because if you don't know where you are or where you're going, how are you going to get there? But here's the shadow side of spending so much time uncovering all the patterns that we need to shift in ourselves. And that is awareness without compassion turns into your self-judgment. And women that are in this phase really start noticing their patterns and their triggers and their reactions. But then they immediately jump to, why am I like this? What's wrong with me? Self-judgment keeps you stuck in cycles of fear and avoidance because it makes every mistake feel like a threat to your identity. Shame doesn't motivate growth. It shuts you down. It makes you more likely to hide and people please or repeat the same patterns. It reinforces the limiting beliefs that were never yours to begin with. And keeping these old seeds alive, when you're constantly criticizing yourself, you drain your energy and disconnect from your intuition. And without that connection, it becomes much harder to make aligned and empowered choices. And it's a natural thing to do, but believe me, it is not helpful. No amount of shame or judgment ever made a person love themselves. So let's state the real goal here plainly. The goal here is not just to see yourself clearly, it's to see yourself kindly. Self-compassion creates a sense of inner safety, and that's where real healing begins. When you meet yourself with gentleness instead of criticism, your nervous system can relax. It makes it easier to process emotions and move forward. It allows you to learn from your experiences without attaching your worth to them. Instead of getting stuck in what's wrong with me, you shift into what can I understand and grow from? And from that place, growth becomes sustainable rather than forced. The third thing I want you to keep in mind is that you may feel worse before you feel better. And that's not a failure, because what's actually happening is that you're no longer numbing and you're no longer bypassing, and you're starting to deeply feel what was already there. So it can tend to feel like healing is making things worse, when in reality, healing is making you aware of what's been there all along. Just because you've been able to push down and bury things up until now doesn't mean that they won't suddenly pop up in the future, at the worst possible moment, mind you. Suppressing our feelings, it might feel safe right now because you don't have to think about them. And the idea of opening that can of worms that you can't get closed again is terrifying. But there's two things about this. When you start to feel worse, it doesn't mean that you broke yourself. It usually means that you stopped suppressing what was already there. And healing often brings things to the surface that your system has been holding onto for a really long time. It can feel like it's getting bigger, but in reality, it's just becoming visible. And the second thing is that you don't have to open everything all at once. Okay. This isn't about ripping the lid off and drowning in it. It's about learning to titrate, to touch the edge of something and then come back to safety a little at a time because you're allowed to go slow. And also, you're not the same version of yourself who originally went through those experiences, right? You have more awareness now, more tools, more capacity to hold it. It might not feel like it in the moment, but you're not going back. You're just meeting it from a different place. I mean, after all, the goal isn't to dig things up and stay there. It's to process and integrate, which actually leads to more peace, not less. And the fear in you says, what if I never feel okay again? But what tends to happen when you do this work gently and intentionally is the exact opposite. You stop carrying it around in the background and it loses its grip. And that creates more peace and freedom for you to enjoy. And you're not going to uncover something that destroys you. You're uncovering something that is ready to be released. The next thing that you need to keep at the forefront of your mind is number 4. This phase is not about fixing yourself, even though it might feel like it is. And that's because you're not fixing yourself. You're meeting parts of yourself that needed support, parts that felt like they had to think or act the way they did because your survival depended on it. And if you try to overrule them or eradicate them, you'll probably end up doing the exact opposite of truly healing. Think of it like this. Have you ever known someone who said they were going to change, but then really struggled with it? Maybe they did for a while, but then they ended up right back where they started. Most of us have experienced something like this in relationship. And it feels like their failure is them not trying hard enough or not wanting to change bad enough. But in reality, they probably really do want to change. But trying to just ignore the parts of themselves that developed coping mechanisms that have been running the show for years is like trying to fly an airplane with no training. You're going to crash and burn no matter how badly you don't want to. And taking on this compassionate viewpoint with yourself, this energy shifts from I'm broken to I'm responding to what I've been through. And that alone changes how you move through this stage completely. Now, there's something that happens on this journey that people don't really talk about. And I want to sit with you in it for a second. And that's when you start healing, you're not just letting go of your pain. You're letting go of parts of yourself that you've known for a really long time. Even if those parts weren't your favorite, they're familiar. They were the ways that you coped and ways that you survived and ways that you made sense of the world. So when they start to fall away, it can feel pretty unsettling. And you might catch yourself thinking things like, I don't really know who I am anymore. And I just want to gently tell you that's not something going wrong. It's actually something going right. Because now you're in that space between who you've been and who you're becoming. And I won't sugarcoat it. Sometimes that space can feel really quiet. When you let go of your coping mechanisms and your old identities and your emotional patterns, there's a gap. And that gap can feel like emptiness and uncertainty and loneliness. But it's not an emptiness in the way your mind might tell you that it is. It's openness, and something new will grow there. It's space that didn't exist before because it was filled with old patterns and beliefs and roles that you've outgrown. And now there's room for something new to take root. So if you find yourself in that place where things feel a little unclear, a little unsteady, don't rush to fill it. Just be there for a moment. Let yourself exist in the in between without trying to fix it because you're not broken, you're becoming. And this part, this quiet, uncertain, open space, that's where the next version of you begins to take shape. Now, I want you to take a breath. I know that that was a lot to take in and probably didn't sound like a bunch of good news. And I also know that when we talk about healing and the potential of all that your life has to offer, it can be easy to want to get there right now. Okay, I'm ADHD, and believe me, I understand the impatience and the urgency and the desire to change to something else at the first sign that it's not working, or when I get the feeling that it's taking too long. But unfortunately, that's just the nature of this work. And that leads us to number 5. You can't heal everything all at once, and trying to will usually backfire. Your system has a natural rhythm, and it's only going to bring forward what you're ready to process. And when you push beyond that, it doesn't speed things up, it just overwhelms you. And that's where burnout and numbness and even shutting down can happen. And it's so easy to get burned out these days. And burning out on your healing path is definitely something I would like to help you avoid. Some ways that you can avoid burnout is realizing that you don't need to go to maximum depth all the time. Not every journaling session needs to be super deep. Not every meditation is going to uncover a deep truth and lead to an epiphany. And not every emotion has to be processed immediately. Think of your healing like a beach. It's beautiful and peaceful, and it's the perfect place to relax. But then, when you aren't expecting it, a big wave comes and you have to move your towel and umbrella or else it'll get swept away. Well, healing comes in waves like that. Some seasons will be deeper and more emotional and more transformative. Other seasons are meant for integration and rest and simply living your life with what you've already processed. Keeping in mind that there is a rhythm to all of this will allow you to enjoy the good days without the pressure that you should be doing something else, like a deep dive into some past trauma. And finding your rhythm is what makes this sustainable. If you feel like you're burning out, that's actually really wise feedback from your body. And it's not a failure, it's just a signal to slow down, to ground, and to come back to safety. You don't need to earn your healing by exhausting yourself. You're allowed to take breaks. You're allowed to feel good in between the work. You're allowed to live, not just heal. Now, having these instructions is all well and good, but we are still human. We forget. We try and we struggle. And sometimes we're too tired. And this is where support comes in. And I know I talk about support a lot, but at this phase in your journey, it's not a luxury, it's a stabilizer. And it's so tempting to try to take on this type of work alone because you might be too embarrassed to share what comes up, or it might be too painful to recount out loud. But trying to do everything alone will likely dredge up a bunch of icky feelings that you don't quite know how to deal with yet. Think about it. The coping mechanisms and processing tools you already have are what got you stuck in the first place. Now is the time to turn to others who have tools that you didn't know about or new ways of processing that you hadn't thought about yet. They can interrupt your patterns when you don't realize that you're slipping back into them. And they can check on you when you're feeling like retreating into yourself or they notice signs that you might be burning out. This is the phase where being witnessed and supported and guided can make the biggest difference. Not because you can't do it alone, but because you don't have to. This phase is where many people get stuck in the trap of trying to do everything alone and endlessly consuming content, but they don't feel held or supported. This is going to bring on feelings of isolation and it can lead to shame spirals, and we all know those don't help anyone. And we didn't become like this alone. We had the help of many other flawed people who taught us damaging and unhelpful patterns. So why would we be able to heal this alone? We're hurt in community and we heal in community. The trick is to upgrade the people that you surround yourself with. So find people with healthy mindsets and emotional intelligence, people who've already walked the path that you're on and can gently help you navigate around potholes and avoid wrong turns. There's no reason to try to reinvent the wheel. There are so many loving and supportive people who are just waiting for you to come along. And I'm one of those people. I have a deep desire to help people heal and grow and learn and flourish. And I'm right here just waiting for you to ask for help. So if you're ready to learn more about what joining in sacred community looks like, head over to mariahaurora.com/work with me and let's schedule a chat. I would love to explore your needs and your desires and to let you know if and how I can walk with you on your path to your own sacred inner divine. And as we wrap up this episode, I want to remind you this phase isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest and then learning how to hold that honesty with compassion, learning to treat yourself gently with all the love and the care that you deserve. So even if you're feeling broken or behind right now, just know you're not. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're finally meeting yourself in a real way. And that's something to celebrate. If you've enjoyed this episode, would you please take a minute and leave me a short review and pass it along to someone that you care about? It means the world to me, and it helps get this valuable healing to as many people as possible. I'll see you next week. And don't forget, there is no path to happiness because happiness is the path.